So yes, it is my great pleasure to open the first of what I hope will be many sessions about decentralization. Our topic for today is the upcoming Supervisory Council elections, which is an extremely exciting next step on our journey. And I expect that we will have many conversations about it over the next few weeks as candidate submissions opened just the day before yesterday. In order to inaugurate and provide plenty of information about this important event, we've got Jan with a little presentation. So take it away, Jan. Thank you.
Well, I just want to say thank you to you all for joining this, as Esther says, first of many, and thanks to everybody who's watching online and who watches online. And I was saying to Ben the other day on our messaging channel, I was saying that alongside building AGI with Ben, the other thing that is super exciting for me personally as a professional who's had a 25-year career now so far in technology, the other thing that's most exciting is this entire decentralization program. It is a brilliant opportunity for us to demonstrate thought leadership, to push the boundary, to push the envelopes of decentralization in a considered, thoughtful, and highly technological and mathematical and systematic way, but still continuously grow out our decentralization program and bring more and more members of the community into more and more levels of decision making. I firmly feel, as I said to Ben, that within the next decade, I'm certain Harvard Business Review will be writing articles about us as a case study in progressive organizational design and in decentralized governance. I'm very, very proud of what we're doing here. Really excited to be kicking off the Supervisory Council elections. We've had very, very excellent years with the current Supervisory Council. I'm very grateful to David and Penny for everything they've been doing for us. And it's exciting now to move into our next phase. So please, everybody, stay with us. Please, everybody, get involved, because we can't decentralize on our own. So the more community is involved, the more everybody contributes to the process of decentralization, as well as voting in the decentralized governance, the greater the singularity movement will be between us all. Thank you so much, Esther. It's fantastic to have welcomed you on board officially to our community recently as our decentralization program lead. And of course, Jan and Peter have been thought leaders in this space ever since I met them. I know it's a great, great passion for everybody here. So thanks all for joining, and let's get on with it.
Thank you so much. Actually quite inspiring the way that you put AGI and decentralization sort of at the same level. And while you were saying so, I was thinking, which of these two is the hardest problem? We all know that AGI is tremendously hard, but we're also making very good progress there. Whereas in decentralization, the whole world has been working on that for millennia, and accurate, good governance and democracy and those things. So if we actually manage to reinvent that as well and make it work as it's supposed to work, we really have achieved something, I would say. But what I will do is take you through rather quickly the journey that we are just embarking on, and I can't tell you anything about the Supervisory Council election without touching the wider perspective of the task force and the blueprint that I will mention right after. So for anybody that is not completely up to speed yet or would like to see it repeated in a concise fashion, I will make this a short introduction. And after that, we can just have an interesting discussion on all that. Let me share my screen. So, Supervisory Council election and decentralization task force. From blueprint to decentralization. First, about the purpose. So, decentralization is urgent because AI is getting stronger and stronger. And as it's getting stronger, it will also get more institutional attention. And institutional attention can come with certain risks. And to mitigate those risks, we think the best way is to be decentralized. Also, in order to have a working, beneficial artificial intelligence, we believe it should be open and accessible to everybody. And we can't make an open platform that is accessible to everybody in a very decentralized way. Actually, in a centralized way. Actually, we could, but it's risky. And you see that in some very big tech organizations, they start out with the best intentions, but there's no guarantee that a centralized organization will always stay on that road. So that is another reason why we think decentralization is very important. It's not only important, it's also getting very urgent. So we are very serious about decentralization. This is not new. We always have been very serious about decentralization. But it did develop a little bit different than we expected, say, 4 years ago, 5 years ago. We expected the whole environment to be further matured in that area, and we expected also our organization, the foundation, to be more decentralized at this stage. But with this situation that we're in now and the rising urgency, we felt the need to take action and to do something about that. So let me show you this very simple graphic as an illustration, the way that we see this new initiative go about. So on the left, you see how we thought it would go, decentralization across the whole foundation. But it appears that the tools and the processes are not well enough matured to do that with confidence. So instead, what we're doing, we're taking a smaller part, but we go faster in that smaller part. And with that situation, we think with everything we learn, we can expand that and be an inspiration and an example to the rest of the organization. So it's a different way of scaling, and we think that this different way of scaling will help speed the process up and give more attention and focus to that process. So roughly, this is what we're at. So at the left, you see election of the Supervisory Council. That's what we're talking about today. When the Supervisory Council is elected, we will create a task force, more about that later. The task force will create a blueprint outlining the principles and the guidelines of this new decentralization initiative, and we will have a community vote on that. And eventually that will end into what we are now calling the Singularity Community DAO, but which might well have another name or not. We'll have to see about that. You could also see that, read this from right to left. So we want to end up at the Supervisory Singularity Community DAO. So how do we do it? Well, we need to have some guidelines for it. So that's the blueprint. So how do we create it? Well, we can't do that in a completely centralized way. That would be a little bit strange for such a decentralization initiative. So we need a task force for that with wise people, so to speak. And that would feed into the first step, having a proper representation of the community. And that's why we need an election for a new Supervisory Council. So you heard the term task force a couple of times. We start out with the Supervisory Council members, but the task force will be larger than just the Supervisory Council. So the Supervisory Council will be elected. So those will be 3 people, and we start the election process today. On top of that, we will have them supported by 5 domain experts. And those domain experts will not be elected, they will be appointed. And the reason for that is that we want to make sure that their expertise is properly distributed over all the topics that we need, such as legal and finance and governance and other topics, ethics perhaps. And then finally, we'll have 4 foundation members, SingularityNET foundation members in the task force to ensure that our original purpose and vision is protected and will get its proper place in this blueprint and ultimately in the Singularity Community DAO. So the task force is very important. We'll start out with the Supervisory Council, but these people will be writing the blueprint with you, with the community. So there's another very important task there. First, a little bit about the blueprint. Our goal is to have it ready in 6 months. Now, for some, 6 months to write a document might look like a long period. To be honest, I think it's quite ambitious because it's not just writing, it's also thinking and debating within the task force, but more importantly, also with the community and getting inputs. And so this public debate, partly in the task force and partly with the community, will take some time and will end in a blueprint that hopefully we will all embrace and believe in, and will be a guide for our future. This will also be a living document. It will not be the end all of all things. It will be, but it should be detailed enough to have confidence in starting the SingCom DAO for real. So that would be it. And when we started the SingCom DAO, we will continue with the blueprint and with the documentation and with the rules and the guidelines. I don't have any illusion that it will be finished. It will be a continuous journey. And I'm sure after the start of the SingCom DAO, there will still be a lot to do and to improve. So to give you an idea on the topics, I think you can imagine governance and decision-making would be very important to have proper processes and guidelines how we do that. It could be voting, but maybe there are other ways as well. Very important is the ongoing dynamics between the community and the foundation. And I say foundation here, but I should say whatever the leadership of the SingCom DAO will be. And then finally, financial governance. There will be treasury. The foundation is in charge of treasury. The minting of tokens will go on for a long time. And we need to be sure that this is governed properly and conscientiously with a future-looking attitude. Then, what we're about right now, the election of the Supervisory Council. So it's very important with this context on what the purpose of the next 6 months will be, is what will the role of the Supervisory Council be in the task force. So I put in bold here the most important part. So what we expect the Supervisory Council to do, the new council, is to engage with the community. First of all, to communicate and say what is happening in the task force and the topics that are being discussed out there. But also getting info back from the community and feed that into the task force to ensure that we have a proper process. And yeah, we expect the Supervisory Council to be proactive in that, to organize events around that, maybe to offer tooling to get feedback. Yeah, we'll be surprised what they will come up with and how they tend to do that. So for this reason, also for the wider community, it's very important to elect the right people that you believe in, that will really be involved and engaged with the community and have the proper vision on this process. So of course, ensure that proper governance methods are defined and steer the whole organization towards a stable and sustainable future, which is not the most obvious thing in this DAO-like situation. And as is always also the case for the current Supervisory Council, guard the alignment of SingularityNET's mission and vision. And ensure that we develop a beneficial AGI for the good of humanity and every individual. So that's about the Supervisory Council. The task force will have about 6 months to create a blueprint. When the blueprint is finished, it will be put up to a vote. Now, we expect with all that community involvement that we will also get good support in the community when we put it up to a vote. If that's not the case, then something went wrong in the process, but still it's important to have it voted. Maybe not everybody is that involved, but we want everybody to have a voice. This will be based on token holdings. If it is voted, then the SingComDAO or whatever the name will be at that time can start for real, but it will also be a starting point for further development. If it is downvoted, we'll go back to the drawing board and we'll do our homework and make sure we'll have an improved proposal for you to vote upon. Some practical information for candidates for the Supervisory Council. We mentioned the 6-month period. Because of this period, we also made the term for the Supervisory Council 6 months. So the first Supervisory Council Council's term was a little bit prolonged, and is because this whole process was in the air, and we want to make sure that we could articulate properly what their responsibilities would be in this new process before going into a new election. So it was a little bit prolonged. For this term, we limited to 6 months because we want to make sure that whatever the task force and the Supervisory Council will decide up and will write down and define in this blueprint cannot be perceived as self-serving. So the best way to ensure that is to say there is one group of people that will write down the rules, but if there is any kind of election after that, and I'm not sure what the future will look like after the blueprint that is to be defined, they will not be eligible for election in that round. If there will be, so suppose there will be a new Supervisory Council after the blueprint period in SingComDAO, in the first period they will not be eligible to be voted, but the periods after that they would again be able to go into relation. There are rewards. We think this work is very important, so we hope that we also get some people on board that might be high profile, but that also have affinity with SingularityNET and with our goals and purpose. And we think we should also reward that properly. So you can see some of it in the tables. If I look at September is a little bit optimistic, I think, but if I look at October, we'll have an amount of AGIX. The current dollar value of that would be about $2,000 a month. And what we expect in return of that is about, well, we put in the document 4 to 8 hours a week, but that is just a guideline. But just to show, there is a lot of work to do, and we do expect a substantial amount of your time. Similar for the expert group, that's a little bit lower, but we won't focus on that in this call too much. What is important is the variable amount. So instead of dividing the whole amount equally among all participants of the task force, we created a fixed amount that everybody will get, and in return of that, we expect some time involvement. But we can imagine that some people will be much more active than others, or will have more availability to be active. So maybe one person will take it on their hands to do most of the writing, and it's a full-time job for a period of time. Then with this variable reward, the Supervisory Council can decide to have this person properly awarded for the hours that they are putting in. There may also be other circumstances. Maybe some supervisory council members are in different stage of their lives or in different location of the world that they require more compensation than others. That we leave that to the discretion of the supervisory council to decide on that. They have to be transparent on that. They have to inform the community how those amounts are spent and why. But we believe this will be a great example of governance and financial governance in action. So there is reporting and accountability. We expect that every 2 months to have a report on how time was spent, what was done during that time, and what the outcomes were of that time allocation. Not a huge bureaucracy, but transparency. Then even more practical, timelines. So we opened our platform where for new candidates on Tuesday, 5th of September, but we didn't give it that much publicity yet. On 7th September, that's now, we have the community AMA, so welcome. The submission period for your candidacy will remain open until the 1st of October. And then after the 1st of October, we'll probably have some kind of event for the candidates to meet the community and to interact with the community, perhaps in a session like this, but the exact format is to be determined. And then Wednesday, 11th of October, the actual voting starts, and we'll do that for a week. And very shortly after the 17th, we will know who the new supervisory council members are, and then we can get this thing on the road for real. A few tips for those of you who would like to candidate themselves. There are some documents online. We have a website. We will publish the URL on social media, on our channels, and on our newsletters, etc. It will give you all the information in this presentation and more. So the most important document is the decentralization vote announcement. It gives the whole context about the task force and the SingCom DAO and the blueprint that we're aiming for. We have a role description that gives a little bit more attention on rewards and responsibilities and so on of the Supervisory Council. We created a blog with some more context, so I would strongly advise you to read that documentation carefully, and based on that, submit your candidacy. So on our portal, there's a form, and you can answer all the fields in the form. It will ask you a little bit about your vision and what you expect and your added value and such, and some regular things like an image and perhaps a video of you presenting yourself. And the portal also allows our community members to get in touch with you, so they can ask you questions. And we hope that you will check the site regularly to see if there are new questions coming in, and answer them and get already into a dialogue with the community, because obviously that will increase your chances of being elected. And maybe you'll learn something from each other. It would even be okay to change something in your application based on community input. So use that opportunity. So this is about the portal actually. So on the left side, it's a screenshot of the portal. You have to push the button, create new proposal. It's more like a generic portal. It's not specifically for this purpose, and this is one thing we can't change. Otherwise it would say submit your candidacy or something, but you have to say create new proposal, and then everything will be quite intuitive, I hope. One important thing would be helpful to have a summary of your purpose, your vision, your added value in 500 characters. And we will use that also on our website so that the community can have a nice and concise overview of all candidates that we hope to see coming in. So, yeah, I think that's it. After you have submitted, start engaging with the community. And yeah, we hope for a lot of, we hope not only for a lot of candidacy submissions, but we also hope for a lot of engagement from our community, just as you are doing with our deep funding. That is a great thing to see. And ask anything you want. So I think that was the last slide. Yes, it was. So I think that's proper timing. So from here on, we could go to the questions. I wonder if this short presentation inspired you to any new questions. If you did, then if they did, then please add them here, and then any of us will try to answer them.
Jan, very nice presentation. My gratitude for your brevity of remarks, but the thoroughness and everything that you laid out there. The one question I have, and it came up in Cardano, and they funded a Scottish, at the University of Edinburgh, I believe, study into exactly what decentralization means and how to measure it. I don't believe that report has been finalized or released to the public. So as SNET is heading towards decentralization, as a scientist, I always look for a theory, a hypothesis, but an end point of exactly where we're going. And if you say, well, it's amorphous and we really don't know what decentralization is, that's fine in itself. But how does SNET, how is the AI community, AGI community, viewing what decentralization means and what it is?
Well, maybe if I can answer that, I can start with saying what it is not, in my opinion. And what it is not, in my opinion, it's one token, one vote. Because that would give a lot of power to some whales, and it will basically be the people with the most money or the most. So that is not what we're after. On the other hand, I also think it would not be good to disregard tokens at all. There are some merits in having people supporting SingularityNET by buying tokens, so we can reward that in some fashion. So if you look at the history of our thinking in SingularityNET, you see a lot of emphasis on, what we used to call reputation. These days, sometimes we call it engagement score. So what it comes down to, I think, is in a sense maybe has some aspects of a meritocracy, making sure it's not always quantity, it's also quality of the people that make decisions. So reputation will play a role, I expect at this moment. So everything I say right now might be proven wrong in the future when we are engaging in the discussions in the task force and with the community. So I'm open-minded and will stay open-minded, and together we will come to a conclusion. So again, this is my personal opinion right now. But I think if people show consistently a high level of engagement within our ecosystem and to our purpose, and that is clear, and they show it and they put a lot of effort in it, then I believe we can also give them a little bit of higher weight in voting than somebody who is just new to the organization or just bought their first batch of AGIX. So it will be, in my expectation, it will be a combination of these two. But I can imagine there will also be other methods of governance, more consensus-based governance, for instance. And that is something that we need to explore, and will make this whole process very exciting. Yeah, so what decentralization is? Decentralization is an ongoing journey, and I don't think we will invent it in half a year and be done with it. We will continuously tune and improve. So one thing that I wrote down personally a couple of times is, whatever we decide on governance, we should always leave open an option to revert whatever we decide on, if it needs to be done, with proper guardrails there. So maybe with a higher voting amount or whatever. One more observation here. If all organizations in the world are decentralized, and we expect all people to be involved in all decisions of all organizations, that's a no-go. I think that's very easy to see for everybody. So that's another reason why I think we probably need to have a little bit of smaller community. Maybe we'll have a representative body in the SingCom DAO that will make a lot of smaller decisions or everyday decisions. So I expect there will be some levels, some decisions. In general, I always like decisions to be made at the lowest possible level. But sometimes the lowest possible level is higher. So I think some could be done by the executive level. Some decisions could be done by a representative board of sorts. And some maybe should include as much of the community as possible. So this blueprint, as a good example, is one of the third category. It should include as many people of the community as possible. I think I'll stop there just now.
May I ask a question or follow up on what you're speaking about? It's Philip McMaster here.
Hello, Philip. Please, welcome.
Hi. Yes, well, I'm so excited to hear your words and hear what we're talking about, because as you say, we're talking about a community, but I'm wondering, and I'm sure this is part of your plan, but we're talking about really a very small community that is crypto, that is blockchain. And I'm just wondering, because maybe you know a little bit about my work, but my effort is to expand the community to non-technical, people living in their lives. So I'm guessing that is one of the long-term objectives of this effort, is to be inclusive of people who maybe don't have the reputational voting systems and so on in their hands, in their wallet yet, but that is the objective. It's not just the technical people who are interested in AI or know anything about it, that are eligible to be having their input into. I understand, to start with, we have to start with what we have at the very base level. What are you? And I have a second question to ask after that. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, actually, I have almost nothing to add there, because everything you say is right. So yeah, I think we should be trying to be as inclusive as possible. I think that's very, very important. The way to get there is another thing. So as you say, we need to start somewhere. I've said many times that it's relatively easy to define or to design a system that will work 5 years from now in a certain situation that you can dream up with engagement, etc. We can make all kinds of processes. The hard part is the journey towards there, and make sure that we don't derail on the road, therefore, towards that. And
that's why it's centralized first, and then decentralized.
Exactly.
I've certainly got that. The second sort of element of my question is, I'm super interested in helping from an administrative, expert experience point of view, but I'm just a little bit concerned. I have proposals in also. I wish that Conscience Land, because of my experience with SingularityNET for 5 years or more than 5 years, that my effort is to make that reputational system, the social credit, decentralized social credit system, and so on. That's my effort. That's what we need in the world to make it work. So is there any conflict? Like, if I were successful in joining you, would that preclude, would there be a conflict of interest? Would it preclude my participation in my own project?
On the contrary, I would say, on the contrary. So we need those kind of experts in. So actually for the Supervisory Council election, we only made one restriction, also in the terms of being inclusive, or one hard restriction, I should say, which is that people that are currently contracted by SingularityNET as a regular thing, like you work 2 days or 5 days or whatever a week, would be excluded, because we already have 4 foundation members, and we don't want it to be overrun by foundation people. But for the rest, if for example, any person being engaged, maybe as a proposer or as a team in deep funding, is also very welcome on Supervisory Council. People that are engaged in the ambassador program are very welcome to submit their candidacy for the Supervisory Council. There are, of course, the soft skills that we require. So that is being aligned with our purpose and vision, and having some affinity, which is no problem in your case, with our higher purpose. And also there are some practical things, like we do expect the Supervisory Council to be very active and proactive, and go to the community and ask the community and organize an event or organize a poll or whatever works, to get also that feedback in and to get that dialogue and that discussion going on. So that is a very important part of the Supervisory Council. And as for...
This is also a big concern of mine, is the expansion out of the, because I was in China for like 15 years, and all of this sort of crypto buddies, crypto bros, like that is a different view of the world. And when we're talking about these decentralized projects, we really have to do an enormous amount of public explanation, town halls, in the community, and so on. And that's what excites me so much about the stage at which SingularityNET has arrived now.
Yeah,
we would all like years ago, but that was too early. COVID and everything else screwed everything up.
True. And this is truly an exciting moment. I think the next year will be, but we say that every year, right? And in a year we will say the next year will be even greater, and we're right every time.
But the need is now, like you read the news, and the social, environmental, and economic structures of the world are collapsing. So we need the decentralized capability.
Absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. You're completely right there. And also right by not wanting to be overrun by crypto people who are just interested in profits and not in purpose. We want people to be interested in purpose. And that's what I was mentioning when I said, well, the road towards that goal is important, and we have to make sure. So what we need to do is not just create governance methods and tools and processes, but at the same time, we should use that time to grow our community and to mature our community to a level where also the community as a whole is up to those responsibilities. Oh, by the way, I can make one more remark that for me is very important in this whole decentralization journey, is to ensure that this governance layer, whoever is involved in that, in what way, stays fresh and lively and not become stale and static. It wouldn't be good if the 5 most prominent people today would still be the 5 most prominent people in 5 years from now. What I would love to see is some dynamics there and new people coming to the surface and allowing and making sure that people have the option and the ability to float to the surface. And others maybe take a holiday for a year or do something else and maybe go from one interested topic to another interesting topic. So I think that is very important, and also to ensure that this whole thing doesn't become a popularity contest, but it's more driven by merit and purpose and time and those kind of things.
Just if I may, thanks a lot for that. But also noting that we don't have unlimited time for this this current call. And I see Fly having his hand up, and also noting Akan's question in chat. I'm not sure if the order matters a lot, as long as we at least cover both. Fly, go for it.
Yeah, sure. Hey guys. I have a question. It could be a worry for a candidate that they may be held accountable for the creation of an entity, perhaps legally or with regulatory issues. Will the foundation provide legal protection if or when necessary? And do you foresee any other issues about applicability which candidates should consider? Thanks.
Very good question. Thank you for that, Fly. We have thought a little bit about that, but this is also part of the blueprint, and this is part of the legal part of the blueprint. So should we create a separate entity for the SingCom DAO, and should there be a decentralization process where everybody with tokens will have some decision making power, then we have to make sure that we wrap that in the kind of legal entity that ensures that not every individual is held personally responsible. So that is a well-known topic in DAOs, and there are legal wrappers that will do exactly that. But to be honest, I don't know today whether the content of the blueprint and the outcome will be a legal entity, or if it will just be a department or an ongoing task force. That's all possible. And depending on that future, might also depend the liability of any participant. But if there is a liability, I think it would be more after SingCom DAO is founded, and the liability would be to anybody who is engaged in that, and not so much the people writing the blueprint. At least that would be my current perspective.
Awesome. Let's move to also noting a question from Walter in chat, but there's also a question from Akan for 15 minutes already. And he's asking, if you want, Akan, and are able to talk, you can also ask it directly.
Yeah, hi. So my question was, do you see any potential conflicts of interest when it comes to industry involvement in supervisory councils, and how can this be mitigated?
Industrial what, sorry?
So do you see any potential conflicts of interest when it comes to industry involvement in supervisory councils? Industry
involvement. Well, first of all, I would say maybe it's not a threat, but an opportunity. So if Google would be, Sergey Brin would be part of, would like to be a supervisory council member, and you would vote for him, well, at the very least, it would give us some very good publicity. Well, but to more seriously, so for the Supervisory Council election, I don't see an immediate threat. So we can ask and we can understand who people are and what they bring and what their motivation is to some extent. Whether it's about the blueprint and the SingCom DAO, this is what governance processes are for, right? And this is what decentralization is all about. And this is what maturing our community is all about. So the larger our engaged community is, the harder it will be for any party, person, whether it's an industry or a political party or whatever, to take over and to influence us. So there is merit and importance in quantity, also in quality, but also in differentiation. Having a lot of different people and a lot of different opinions and a lot of different views participating in our wider community. So that's why I think we should be very open. Yeah, I'm not sure if that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks, Okan. Anybody else? I'm very bad at reading and talking and listening at the same time. So I'm not on par with everything that's in the panel here. And if ever anybody else would like to answer a question, and that's also fine, please go ahead. Don't want to take all the time here.
Well, there is a question in chat. I'm not sure if we can fully answer it, but basically, who do we expect to join the task force as 9 Foundation plus expert representatives?
Yeah, so for a lot of people, it's open. So for the 3 Supervisory Council members, it's completely open. The 5 experts, maybe that's something to mention here. We are now having a mission, as it's called, in our portal, where Supervisory Council candidates can submit a candidacy. Tomorrow, the day after or something, we will have a similar option for the experts. So if you'd rather be a domain expert, you can also submit your candidacy for that. That will not be part of any election, but it would be very good to get to know you and to understand what your added value and your expertise is in this project. It's also fine, by the way, to submit to both groups. You can say, I want to submit to the Supervisory Council. If I'm not elected there, then I would still be great to offer my expertise as a domain expert. That's also perfectly fine. Then for the foundation members, we haven't fully landed on that. There are different people in different layers in the organization, as specified in the documentation: governance board, executive board, also the lead of deep funding. That would be me. So I think that's the one person that you can absolutely count on here. I will be part of that. And for the rest, I hope that will be clarified pretty soon.
Which kind of experts you are expecting to see, or was there a list of that? And how do you kind of recognize experts? Because some people have been doing things, because this space we are here in the blockchain space and AI on top of that, that is so new that there technically is no expert in this area, and people who are doing stuff for a few years are technically the experts because they are in that niche area and doing these things where everybody else has been just learning from them and these insights. So how do you recognize experts, and which kind of areas are you looking in?
Yeah, the areas we've listed. So think of governance, decentralized governance. So that would be a very new area. But there are people who have spent a significant part of their time over the past years in that topic. So we would love to have them on board. Another very relevant aspect, also related to one question before, would be legal. I think it would be very helpful to have some legal person there represented in the domain experts to be part of this ongoingly and not just as a one-off assignment. Some financial background or crypto financial background would be helpful. AI ethics might be an interesting topic to have there. And AI as such might be an interesting topic to have there. Once the Supervisory Council is elected, we will, together with the Supervisory Council, decide which people and which expertises are most wanted. Maybe if one of the Supervisory Council members, suppose he would be a very accomplished lawyer or legal person in the crypto area, then maybe it's less important to have that expertise as a domain expert. So we'll have to see. But these are the areas that I expect. And the reason why we are appointing them is to make sure that we do have people in each of these areas. Otherwise, we could organize an election, but maybe we'll end up with 5 lawyers, and that's not what we want.
Walter, you have your hand up? Or Esther, I see you unmute. Did you want to chime in on this?
I just wanted to add that in the task force expert group, what we'd be looking for is balance and variation. So preferably not so much overlap and a lot of variety and expertise across the board. It, in a way, the fact that it is a selected process ensures that, because if there's a random election process at the task force, then you might risk 3 people being very popular who are all experts in the same area. So that was just a small matter.
Yeah, you were breaking up a little bit, but I think the message is clear. I also want to add here that maybe we'll have one expert who has expertise in 3 of these areas, and another expert who will have expertise in 2 areas. So there's some human touch here to ensure that we think we have the right distribution of knowledge that will help us on this journey and writing a blueprint. I think it's time for Walter to ask a question.
Yeah, so the reason I ask that, there are these little orgs, like apparently experts get paid half as much, but SC people don't get don't have a chance to run at some future date. So I'm just curious what, how people are gonna decide which slot they're gonna go after. For me, it's kind of a simple thing that I'd like to assist. I'd like to see this succeed, but I don't want to compete with people who've been around a while, who are more into the community and so on and so forth. So it's kind of like that.
Well, first of all, you're free to compete. I think actually there's some benefit in competing. It is important that you have some affinity with what we're doing at SingularityNET in creating the beneficial artificial general intelligence for all, and that you subscribe to that purpose. Whether you want to submit your candidacy for the Supervisory Council or as a domain expert, I think depends also a lot on your personal attitude and strength. So from the Supervisory Council, we expect a very open role. They will be in front of the camera a lot, I suppose. They will be talking to the community in meetings like this. They might be interacting on social media a lot with community members. So that's a very different role than having expertise in a certain area, whether it's legal or finance or governance, and being able to write a good document or have a good internal discussion with the task force. Having said that, I do expect these experts also occasionally to come at camera to explain directly to the community what their thoughts are and open themselves up to questions. So, but maybe not to the extent that the Supervisory Council members would be. But you're welcome, Walter. And, in the end, it's not up to you. It's up to the community to vote and to decide whether they think you are a proper candidate. And coming back to TiVo, it's also your part in convincing the community that you do have the right expertise and that you do have the right background and that you have added value to this process. And if you are able to convince the community on that and you're being voted upon, then I have every confidence that you're a perfect candidate.
Ooh, good stuff. Looking at the clock, I think it might be time for doing a final check on the room if there's any questions right now.
Maybe one question. Shall we also try to find people who are certainly not on the call, but we know in the community that would make great additions to these councils? Like, is there a kind of some kind of image that we can send out in an email or like so kind of an invitation seeking these candidates? Because obviously it's better to have more competition. You know, it's better to have more people that may have not heard about this. What do you think of that?
Yeah, the obvious yes. We want that. And so a role for the community here is not only to decide whether you want to candidate yourself, but also to go out and search and find and motivate the candidates that you think would be right for this job. And yeah, people can be right for the job because they have a lot of expertise. They can also be right for the job because they have SingularityNET heart, so to speak. And if you have both, then it's even better. But yes, please. And I think if we can help in any way, so we're creating these documents in PDF so they're more easily exchanged and communicated. If there are other ways we can do that, we will help. And we'll have the website up and running so you can easily share a URL with people. And if there are any other ways, then we're happy to help. So we have a.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
Just literally a little announcement, a little ad that we can, grab off the site or something, and add to our mailing list.
Yeah, I think Peter from marketing can perhaps help with creating that. I must say that we had a discussion a couple of days ago whether we should go all out into the world with this. So I could mention it on my LinkedIn page, etc. And I wasn't convinced that is the best way, because we don't want a lot of people in that just present themselves for the sake of the reward, for instance. We want people that are intrinsically motivated for this. And it would not be a good thing to have 100 people in that will just be noise, even if it's clear what their purpose is. And they
actually, Nick's my idea. I withdraw my suggestion. But personally, I think you're right. I'll just contact some people who I think should be applying.
Yeah, so I think we might give you some help. It's not a bad idea, but it's more like, where do you post such a thing?
Right, yeah, I agree.
Then unless there are any other new question, I suppose it's a wrap for today. And this is not the end all. We'll have another call in a couple of weeks, and there's room for new questions. I see some people making hand movements. So
well, there's a little one tiny question. I mean, it was touched on earlier somewhat, but not fully, I don't think. On the foundation members, whether they are being chosen or voted on. And if chosen, do we know already who? Just for full clarity, I think.
No, I think I already answered that question. So there will be. So we have outlined there will be one member from the governance board, one from the executive board, one from deep funding, and one that we haven't decided upon yet. But they will be appointed by the foundation, and that is the foundation's responsibility, the foundation part, to ensure that we have the right people there. Just as it's the community's responsibility to make sure that we have the right supervisory council members later on.
All right, good. Yeah, felt like just including that for clarity. Then as to answer another question in chat, will there be follow-up calls to this? Yes, definitely. Lots of them. Basically, starting next week, we're going to do bi-weekly governance calls, and also in the period of the voting, the election period, there will be, I think, closer to weekly calls. But the schedule for that is to be published, and it will also be on the public calendars, like the ambassador calendar, for example, will call out all these events. So yes, lots of follow-up calls are coming.
And very soon the website will be up and running, I expect later today or early tomorrow, and the upcoming events for the DAO and for all of these items will be listed all on there. Great, thank you. That was very thorough. I'm glad that there was so much discussion, and thank you, Jan, for a very clear and thorough presentation. I enjoyed that very much. And I'm so grateful that all of you turned up as well, and I hope you found it enlightening. And if you think of any burning questions that you didn't manage to ask today, then please do post them in the Discord DAO discussion channel, and we will pick them up and discuss them next week or directly with you in the channel. So I hope I will see some of you at least next week at the same time, 4 p.m. UTC. Great, thank you. Thank you, Peter, for hosting and housekeeping and making sure that everybody was heard.
Well, thanks, Jan, as well, for giving stuff to listen to.
Well, and thank you, Esther, for organizing all this stuff behind the scenes, a lot of that, and orchestrating everything and being there. So thanks a lot. And thank everybody who participated. And thank you for your great questions. They were actually great questions. I loved answering them. So keep them coming.